I've been in the Medicare business now over 15 years and have educated millions of people about Medicare. But I am shocked by the amount of people that think that once they go on Medicare, it's going to be free. Now, Medicare is a very good value, but it is far from free. In fact, in 2025, there will be some people that will pay $626 just for Part B premiums. In this video, I'll explain why. I want to begin by looking at how Medicare arrives at the premium amounts that we have to pay for Medicare Part A and Part B. All right, so let's start with Part A. Now, the Part A side of Medicare is what's going to pay for your inpatient hospital stays, for skilled nursing facility stays, for hospice, as well as home health care after a hospital stay. And so the Part A side of Medicare, the amount that we have to pay is based upon what the government calls quarters, right? And a quarter is actually a dollar amount. In the old days, it actually used to be 3 months, but they changed the system. And so today, what happens is we accumulate quarters by paying into the Medicare tax system. Now, the quarter amount goes up on an annual basis, but for 2025, the quarter is going to be $1,810. And what that means is, as you're working, you're paying into the Medicare tax system. So if we have taxable income, this would be wages, gross wages, 1099 income. It could be net self-employment income. And if we have $1,810, then that is going to give us 1 quarter. Okay. Now, I cannot get any more than 4 quarters in a year, but I don't have to work the whole year to accumulate my 4 quarters. All they have to do is make 4 times that amount. So let's do the math on that. 32. We're going to carry the 3. We got 7. So we have $7,240 in wages. Again, that would be W-2 income, 1099 income, net self-employment income. $7,240 is going to give us our 4 quarters for the year. And so the government says as long as we accumulate a total of 40 quarters, then we're going to get our Medicare Part A premium free. And so I want to make sure you understand the 40 quarters really is the key to having eligibility for Social Security as well as for Medicare. Now, I want to explain something a little bit about the quarters. First off, most people are going to get their 40 quarters from their own work record, meaning their own income. But sometimes people don't have 40 quarters. And so what happens is they actually can get those from a spouse. So if we don't have 40 quarters, now the key would be you're turning 65, and if you don't have 40 quarters of your own, we can look to a spouse, but if we're looking to an existing spouse, we have to be married for 1 year or longer, and that spouse has to be 62 at least, means they have to be eligible for Social Security. They don't have to be taking Social Security, they just have to be eligible. So if you're married to someone, you don't have your own 40 quarters, as long as you've been married a year longer, they're 62, we can get the 40 quarters from them. Now, sometimes people are not married and they don't have 40 quarters, but then we can look to an ex-spouse. Now, the rules are a little bit different. Obviously, you're turning 65. And so when we look to an ex-spouse, what happens is we have to have been married to that ex-spouse for a minimum of 10 years plus. And we could not have remarried prior to the age of 60. If you remarried prior to the age of 60, you cannot go back to the ex-spouse unless that second marriage ends in death or divorce, then you can go back. And so the point is, if we're single or we got remarried after the age 60, we can go to the ex-spouse. But again, that ex-spouse also still has to be eligible for Social Security. You don't have to be taking, but they need to be eligible. So the point is, we're always looking for 40. Again, most people are going to get it on their own, but if not, we go to a spouse or an ex-spouse. So that's the way the Part A premiums are based. It's based upon you having 40 quarters or not. All right, that brings us then to Part B. Now, the Part B amount is not at all based upon quarters. It's actually going to be based upon income. Now, specifically, the income that the government is looking at is called Modified Adjusted Gross Income. We use the acronym MAGI. And so if I am going to be on Medicare in 2025, what happens is the government looks back at my tax return in 2023 at my modified adjusted gross income. So we always look back. I'm shooting this video in November of 2024. So anyone that's on Medicare right now, they actually look back at 2022 modified adjusted gross income to determine what we pay for Medicare Part B. And so this modified adjusted gross income, very easy to calculate. It is going to be line 11 on your tax return, which is simply adjusted gross income. Very simple to find. And they add in line 2A, which is tax exempt interest, okay? Now, majority of people don't have anything on line 2A, but if you invest in municipal bonds, some actually savings bonds, you have to report that interest. You don't have to pay taxes on it federally, but you still report that on your 1040. And so the point is we take AGI, we add the tax exempt interest, and that's going to give us our modified adjusted gross income. Okay, that's what's going to determine how much we're going to pay for Medicare Part B. Now remember, they're always looking back 2 years. Now also want to make sure everyone's clear that they recalculate the Part B premiums on an annual basis. In fact, this year, the Part B premium is $174.70. It's going to go up, and I'll show you those numbers here in just a second. But I'll make sure you know that we have these calculations that will come out every year to determine what we're going to pay for the following year for our Medicare Part B. So it's all based upon that number right there. Hey, if you found this video helpful and you want to see more Medicare information just like it, then go below, right below the video, and you can give us a thumbs up as well as subscribe to our channel. And every time I put a new video, which is about 2 every week, you'll be notified of that video, and others just like you who need this vital information will get it as well. All right, now that we have an understanding of the formula that's used to determine our premiums, let's look at those actual numbers that we'll be paying for 2025. We also posted here on this chart what the premiums are for this year in 2024. Medicare just released these on the 8th of November. So this is brand new information. So let's go through, first of all, Part A, that inpatient hospital side, skilled nursing side of Medicare. Now you're going to notice here for most people, in fact, 99% of you are going to have a zero premium in 2024, and that's going to stay the same. Why is that? Well, because you have 40 quarters, or you're going to get those from a spouse or an ex-spouse. And so it is premium-free Part A for a lifetime. All right, so that's going to remain the same. Now, if we don't have 40 quarters and we can't get those from a spouse or ex-spouse, and we happen to be somewhere between 30 to 39 quarters, and by the way, if you're real close, I'd go back to work if you can. Remember, $1,810 is going to give you a quarter, and so remember we saw in that chart, you don't have to make a little over $7,000 to pick up 4 quarters. So if you're close, if you can possibly go back to work, then that really is the best plan. But if you can't, and we're actually going to have to buy Medicare Part A, we're between 30 to 39 quarters, that's $258 this year, 2024. Next year, it's going to be $285. And so you can see why I would tell you, if you're close, if you can go back to work, we move away from having to pay for it up into the free column. All right. Now, as we look at people who have less, though, than 30 quarters, now they're 0 to 29 quarters, then they this year pay $505, and this went up to $518. Okay, these are monthly premiums. So, folks, if you're up in this column, what a wonderful value that is. Part A is great insurance, and there's zero premium for the majority of you. So that's Part A. Let's talk about Part B. Now, remember the Part B is the one that's going to be based upon our modified adjusted gross income that I just taught you about. Now, what we call the base premium. This is what the majority of people pay, about 90%. This year, that base premium is $174.70. Now, I want to explain something about the Part B premium. If you're on Social Security, this has to come out of your Social Security check. If you're not yet on Social Security, you will either pay this on a direct bill on a quarterly basis every 3 months, or they'll set up some kind of an auto pay for the Part B premium until you start taking Social Security. So the base premium right now is $174.70. This is going up just a little over $10 next year, and it's $185 beginning in January. And so if you're on Social Security, you'll see that slight increase in your January Social Security check. All right, so we talked about this number is what most people are going to pay, the base standard premium. But for some people, notice here, now we're going to have to pay an additional amount. And the way this works is the government actually sets a modified adjusted gross income threshold. And if we stay below the threshold, all we do is pay the base standard premium. Those thresholds are changing next year. For right now, the base premium for a single filer is $103,000. In 2025, that is going to $106,000. And again, modified adjusted gross income. And for a married couple that files a joint return, it just doubled this year's $206. Each of you would pay the $174.70 if we're below these thresholds. Okay, that is going to $212,000. So again, if I stay below those numbers, I pay the base premium. But if I am above those numbers, then what happens, you can see here, we have an additional charge, which is called an IRMAA. Let me explain the IRMAA. The IRMAA is actually an acronym, which is called, it stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, an IRMAA. And this is about 10% of the Medicare population. And so they add an IRMAA to anyone that's going to be above these threshold numbers. It's a surcharge. It's basically an additional tax. And there's actually 5 different levels of IRMAAs. And I'm going to show those on my next slide, but I want to make sure you understand what happens is when we're assessed these IRMAAs, now they're adding these IRMAA amounts to our Part B as well as to our Part D. Now, I want to explain another thing. We know that some people are assessed IRMAAs. Let's say I'm going to retire in 2025, but they're looking back at 2023. And in 2025, I'm retiring. I'm not going to make as much money, but they look back 2 years. So what you have the right to do, based upon one of 8 life-changing events, I'll show those to you here in just a minute, you have the right to appeal the IRMAAs. So if you've been assessed one because of 2 years ago income, but you've had one of these life-changing events and now your income is lower, then you can ask them for a reconsideration. You appeal the IRMAA. And the form that we use is called an SSA 44. And we help our clients with this kind of thing all the time. But the point is, I want to make sure you know IRMAAs are a reality for some, and we want to make sure you know that you may have to pay those. But if you've had that qualifying life-changing event, we may be able to get that reduced or actually eliminated altogether. Let's look at the IRMAAs. All right, so again, these numbers just came out a few days ago. These will be assessed for 2025 if indeed people are going to have IRMAAs. So let's look at the first one where there is no IRMAA. Remember, these are our thresholds. So we said that if I stay below 106,000 as an individual filer, I'll have no IRMAA. I'm just going to pay what? I'm going to pay that one next year, that $185, and that's all I have to pay. So 0 IRMAA on the B or the D. Now we'll go to our first level of IRMAAs. This is going to be the lowest IRMAA amount, and that's anyone that's single, 106 to 133, married couple, 212 to 266. And so what's happening, your IRMAA on the B side of Medicare is going to be $73.60. And any time we have an IRMAA on the B, that outpatient side, doctor side of Medicare, we're also going to have an IRMAA on our drug plan. Now, again, drug plans right now average about $20, $25 a month range. There's some higher, some lower. But the point is, if I don't have an IRMAA, all I have to do is pay that Part D insurance company that premium for my self-administered medication. Just pay a premium and I'm done. But if I'm at these income levels, now they're going to take that premium. Let's say it's $20, and I'm going to have to pay an additional surcharge for that as well. So IRMAAs will affect us both on the B and the D side. All right, let's go to the next marginal tax bracket. And for single filers, 133 to 167, married filing a joint return, 266 to 334. You can see now we have an IRMAA of $184 on the B, and then an IRMAA on the D of $35.30. Now I want to clarify something. We've talked about this joint return. There are some times when people are married and they file still an individual return. They didn't file a joint. And so what happens there, I don't have it up here because it doesn't affect a lot of people, but I want to remind you, if that's your situation, you will get into IRMAAs much quicker and larger amounts very, very fast. So if the strategy is we're going to file a separate return here because we're married to try to avoid IRMAAs, that is not going to work for most people. All right, so let's keep going. So we see that level. Let's go to level number 3. Again, 167 to 200, 334 to 400, 1,000, and now we have an IRMAA 294. Now keep in mind, if both of you are on Medicare, husband and wife, both of you have that additional charge. Okay, it's not just for the couple, it is each of you, and then again a D IRMAA as well. And then we go to 2 to 500,000, 4 to 750. Again, very high income here. Now we're paying 404 plus 78. And then the last one, the highest income marginal bracket here, is going to be 500 for single, 750 for a married couple. And so we're going to have an IRMAA of 441.70. Okay, and so here's the whole point. I'm just going to round that up to 30 cents. And so we got $442 in IRMAA. So you can see here that's going to be what? $627. $627 just in Medicare Part B. And then you'd have to add that for your drug plan. So we're paying $700 just for our Medicare Part B plus the IRMAAs on the B and on the D. All right, and so that's why we're saying if you've had a life-changing event that qualifies you to be able to appeal or to get a reconsideration, it is definitely well worth your time. All right, so that's the IRMAAs for 2025. Let's look at how we can appeal them if indeed we have that qualifying event. Hey, if you come to the place where you know you're going to have to make some Medicare decisions pretty soon, the best way to do that is to click up here in this right-hand corner, and you'll have an opportunity to book a call with one of our Medicare guides. All the guides around here I have personally trained, and they truly are professional. They'll answer your questions, and they'll show you different Medicare options to make sure that you're confident in the decision that you make. So here's the form that we would use officially to appeal the IRMAAs. And by the way, if you do have a life-changing event that you qualify for, this form, once completed, will actually go to your local Social Security office. And it is well worth your time to do this. And also, I want to remind everyone that when we appeal the IRMAA, we don't have to eliminate the IRMAA fully. You still may be high income. Even if you move down a level or two, it's well worth your time to do that appeal. It may be eliminated or just reduced. So let's go through the different life-changing events, okay? And there's 8 of them you're going to notice. So what happens? Life-changing event. And just so you know, this life-changing event has had to happen in the last 2-year period of time. If it's 5 years ago, can't appeal. Why? The government looks back 2 years. So if we've had this life-changing event since that time in which they're looking back, so 1 or 2 years since then we can appeal the IRMAAs. All right, so the first one will be marriage. What's that mean? Well, this is someone that 2023 filed a single return. They were above the 106, so they have an IRMAA. But now they're married, and combined, their income is below or lower than the levels. And so we would just mark marriage is our reason for appeal. We'd also then have to, of course, prove this with a marriage license, and then we'd submit that along with our new financial numbers to get that reconsideration. Divorce or annulment. Husband and wife together, make a certain amount of money, and now there's a divorce. Income could be cut in half, or some portion of it is now gone. And again, if you have the divorce, we prove this with a divorce decree, give them new financial numbers, we can win that appeal. Death of your spouse. Clearly, you've lost that income. Work stoppage. Now, I'm going to show you the work stoppage and the work reduction are the 2 most common ones that we use. All these can be used, but these are the most common. So this is someone that stopped working. So I was working in 2023. That's what they're looking at. But I stopped working in 2024 or 2025. And as long as that life-changing event, you have stopped working, then we can appeal and give them the new numbers, what our new income is going to be, even if it's a projection. Just be sure to be as close to accurate as you can. But we can project what our income is going to be, and they'll look at that instead of looking back to 2 years. Again, work reduction, you're still working, but you've reduced it in some fashion. Now, I want to clarify these last 3 here. These do not happen often. But you'll notice here it says loss of income-producing property. It doesn't mean that you owned a piece of property and you sold it and took a loss. What this means is that in 2023, you had this income, but that property has been lost. Maybe it was destroyed in a hurricane or a tornado, or it burned down, or it was in California and went down a mudslide, meaning it's no longer around. Okay. Now, in this one, we have to prove through insurance papers or some means that property is indeed now destroyed, no longer available to you to get income. All right, now loss of pension income, this means that you're receiving a pension, but that has either been eliminated because it was a temporary pension, or maybe the pension went bankrupt. All right, and then the last one, employer settlement payment, same thing. You had it, no longer receiving that. You were in 23, no longer are now in 2025. Obviously, that's affecting your income. All right, now I want to clarify something. The work stoppage and work reduction, you can provide proof. Sometimes it's a pay stub, or it could be a letter from your employer. But the government says if these are your 2 reasons, all you have to do is check the box and you sign that you're attesting that the numbers you give them are true and accurate. And you need to be honest about this. And you're basically signing an affidavit that when you're saying I've stopped working or I've reduced my hours, that is indeed factual. There doesn't have to be any kind of a visible proof like there would be on these other 6 options. Okay, then the date of life-changing event. Again, this could have been in 2024, could have been 2025. It couldn't have been 3 or 4, 5 years ago, because we're not looking back that far. But if it's happened the last couple of years or will happen, once that event has happened, then you can appeal your IRMAA. So you'd put the date in there. And keep in mind, I can use this life-changing event. Let's say the wife is no longer working. Now the husband's also going to retire. Both of you have IRMAAs. You can use the same event for the couple. All right, and so just keep that in mind. Also keep this in mind that you can use the same life-changing event 2 times. Remember, these are recalculated every year. So if I'm going to retire in 2025, they look at 2023. I can use my appeal this year. I can also use it next year as well. So 2 years for that life-changing event. All right, now let's talk about giving them the right numbers, because once we have our life-changing event, one of these, then we're going to have to give them that information. So again, let's say I'm in 2025, they're looking at 2023. And so what I would do, I could say, well, in 2024, my job reduced my hours, or I stopped working. And so you're going to put your new numbers in. Let's just use a couple for the sake of agreement. We know that we need to stay below the $212,000. So let's say that now this year I'm just making $170,000, right? Tax exempt interest, remember that's line 2A, and let's say we don't have any of that or whatever it is. But the two of those combined give us our modified adjusted gross income. And so if you're married filing a joint return, they'll look at that and we fall below the level. Now let's just say though that you were at the 500,000 and you had a much higher IRMAA, and this is going to be 265,000. You're still going to have an IRMAA, but you're going to have a lot less of an IRMAA. And that's why I'm saying take the time to appeal it. Even if you can't move all the way down to zero, you can at least reduce that IRMAA with the life-changing event. All right, and so those are the possibilities. And I do want to remind you that if you're our client, we actually will work through all this with you. We do these all the time, so we'll give you the assistance, make sure it's filled out properly, and kind of brainstorm exactly when this needs to go in and what information you need to supply them to be sure you qualify and win the appeal.